Hello once again, everyone, and welcome to really the first video of the new year. Actually, it's the second video I just posted on our messenger group that I just did a full video, and it was long, and it went over some detail, and right as soon as I finished it, I started watching it, and I changed my mind on sending out keeper, strategies and things like that, and so on. So, I mean, it's a long off season. There's a lot of time to kind of talk and look over some things and so on. But I realized that I spent some time this morning doing some homework and looking at keepers for each team and so on. And I don't know. I just don't want to do everybody's homework for them. And I don't want to persuade anybody's thoughts on who they're going to keep or not keep because of something I picked. So I changed my mind and I'm doing video number 2, and going over kind of still the same things that I talked about before. But I think we'll just keep the actual keeper picks that I kind of had listed out of this video and just talk about them and really, show you how to set up your own draft board, your own keeper thoughts, to be able to kind of do the same, prep work that I'm doing. So, all right, with that being said, let's jump into it. I'm going to keep this video shorter than the other one, too. The other one was like 30 minutes, and I think I would have lost you. After about 10 of just going over it, it just was too long. So we'll keep this one a lot shorter. We'll go over some of the basics. But ultimately, again, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. We understand where we're at in the season, what keepers will look like, how to set them, and how to get the information, how to set up your own little mock draft board so you can go into your own prep. So, fantastic. That being said, let's talk about some rules. So, the keeper rules I sent out to all of you already. We have all that, sent. Nothing's changed on here since the last time I sent it to you. We still are in the process of doing a few updates and so on. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But ultimately for keepers, as we talk keepers with our keeper league, we are able to keep up to 3 keepers, this year. It's up to 3. You don't need to keep 3, but you can. You can definitely choose to not keep any if you don't want to. That's totally up to you. But, when I know I'm looking at my team, there's somebody on my team that I feel like is somewhat of a value that I could keep. But that's as of right now. That definitely could change as we're getting closer to August and so on. So each team can keep up to 3 keepers. Keepers can be kept for 2 years. For this year, since this will be our keeper year 1, we're going to keep them in the same round. If you decide to keep that same player next year, then again, it's going to be 1 round earlier. Every player can be considered a keeper, even your first round pick. But that ties into what we just got done talking about, right? Because your first round keepers can only be kept for 1 year because next year you will not have a 1 round earlier than your first round to be able to keep them. So just something to keep in mind. If you're keeping your first round pick from this year, that will be the only year you'll keep him. He'll go back into the regular pool for next year. If you do have 2 keepers with the same round availability, then you can use a round earlier. That probably will play into effect for a few of you maybe that decide to keep a couple of free agents, that they default to your 16th round for your keepers. And now you can actually keep them, keep 1 in the 16th, 1 in the 15th. So, and I actually think if we go down a little farther, that was kind of one of the next rules that are on there was, if you picked anybody up that wasn't drafted, they would be in the 16th round. But ultimately, anybody that you're keeping, right, keeps their availability based on where they were drafted. So if you traded for somebody and it's based on wherever they were drafted from the original team, even if it's not on your team. So if that player was drafted in the 3rd round and you want to keep them, that's where you're keeping them. It would be the 3rd round. Doesn't matter if you drafted them or not. It's wherever they were drafted. But if they weren't drafted and they were picked up as free agents, then, of course, that's when they will default to the 16th round. So we've gone over all that before. Nothing different by any means and so on. So, but just to go over it again. And just to understand then timeline, so to keep keepers, to set keepers, we set it right for 2 weeks before the draft. So that would be Saturday, August 10th at 7 o'clock. Would be 2 weeks before our draft to have your keepers set. You can set them anywhere in between now and then. Just don't forget. I'm not going to babysit. I'll probably send out a few reminders. as we get closer to the time frame. But if you miss the deadline and you don't set keepers, I'm not going to go back afterwards and say, hey, it looks like you didn't set anybody. Did you still want to? I'll make changes. Nope. You missed the deadline. You didn't set any keepers. You're out of luck. Then you're not keeping anybody. That's just to be fair. So make sure you select them. To do that, nice and easy, you can see on the screen here where you can go, and I've already set a few keepers. I think if you don't, it just says, how to. It may set keepers or whatever. I set a few. I put 3 names in there, players I'm not going to keep, but just so we can all see on there. I went and selected, based on the players that were on my team last year, selected 3 of them, and then hit set keeper. At any time, then I can go and change my mind completely, unselect the ones that I have, select 3 new ones, hit set keepers. It updates. I have that on there. So again, it's totally up to you on when you want to set those. You just need to make sure they are set before the deadline that's, for your team. So fantastic. So that's the time frame we have to set for keepers. That's how you set your keepers. But let's also look at then, so as you're doing some of your prep work, and maybe you want to start looking into, who else may have keepers. How do I pull all that up? So as you're in, of course, the current year, we're in the 2024 year, you can still go and reference last year. For those of you, I'm sure some of you have already gone and done that and played around with it. But if not, if you go up to that little gear icon at the very top, go down to previous leagues, should be able to pull up 2023. And then that will have everything for this year, or for last year, sorry. You can go to draft results, and it will give you the draft board for what we had for last year, and kind of see where everybody was taken from a draft aspect for last year. Also, something to kind of keep in mind, though, too, is like final rosters, if you're looking at that as well, because that's something I know I look at, that you can go to, teams, I believe, and select. I'm trying to think of how. You can probably go to, the matchups on here. Teams. I don't know if you can select different teams. I know there's a way to look at. Yeah, maybe I just went by league, and then for all the teams that were on here, you can go to the standings, select on the team, see their roster. Yep, that's what I was going off of. So you can actually see who was on their final roster as well. So you can take last year's draft order. You can take the, final rosters from the teams, and then you can kind of go through and do your own mock draft for keepers. And that's what I did. I just went through and I looked at all that, and I just went based on value and who I thought was a good value for a team and who they might keep as part of their team. And then what I did is what I would recommend you doing. As you're doing mock drafts, you can go in, pull up a mock draft. It will pull in the settings for this league. And I think the first one is the one I've done my practice on, and I keep it paused so I can look at it. But we use the second one that's on here, for example, because I think it's just a brand new one. Yep, and kind of shows you on there, and it pulls me in as the 4th pick. And you can set up your draft board for here. So you should have the ability, same as me, to go and assign a pick. So let's say, and again, we're not giving anybody strategy away. So Sean has the number 1 pick. Let's just say for the number 1 pick, he plans on keeping, and I'm going to pick somebody who I know wasn't on his team again, and just randomly saying he's keeping. I scrolled way too far down. So Rashid Rice, sure. There you go, and you can go and assign, Rashid Rice there, and then maybe I think John has the 12th pick, and let's say you think John's going to keep, and not actually a keeper that he has, but maybe somebody else on who we drafted, whoever. Let's say John's number 1 pick last year was Najee Harris, and therefore he wants to keep him in the first round this year. You can go ahead and really then set up your board and go all the way far down and set up for keepers. That's really all that I did, as I went through and I did all 12 teams, jotted down 3 names who I thought that maybe they would keep based on value, what round they would be. Real quick, went through and set up my draft board with them on here. And then I was able to study it. And wow, the things that you will learn from that, because then once you assign all your projected keepers, you can see then who's still available. It will help you then determine, do you need to keep your first round pick based on who you see? So if you drop them into the pool based on how, they're projected to go for this coming year, will they still be available to you at pick 4 for me? For example, would my first round pick, if I decide not to keep him, will he still be there for me at 4? And what do I want him at 4? Is he worth the 4th pick on, or who else would be available, and so on, based on doing some of your homework. So I just wanted to show you this. I'm pretty sure that you all have the ability to go in and assign picks on here and actually set players for that. So you can pretty much set up your draft board and you can keep it that way. Like I said, I have the one right, this top one I'm not going to show you, but that's where I have all 3 for each team set. So I can actually pull it up and view. And then as I'm kind of changing my mind at who they might keep, I'm going and updating it. And then I can actually do mock drafts off of that, or just, visually kind of look at it and play around with that. So just fun prep that you can do. Identifying potential keepers, and then doing some of your own mock drafts. I have noticed, and I know John posted on here that, he was already starting to do some drafting and doing best ball and things like that. Like the things that you're seeing right now at the end of May, I guarantee will change so much between now and the beginning of August. There's a lot of players. A lot of the rookies are ranked really high, and some of the running backs I think that should be really high are actually ranked a lot lower than I would anticipate they would be at the start of preseason games and things like that. So a lot's going to change. But again, it's all tools for you to help play around with. One of the nice things that we have with this sleeper app that we can do, that you can really set up your own mock draft with projected keepers, keep it on file, and be able to do some studying that's based on that. So fantastic. So I wanted to go over that with you. Again, that is then go back to the actual this year. That is, when you need to set your keepers by 2 weeks before the draft, how you set your keepers, how you can set up a mock draft, how you can put some of your projected keepers into the mock draft that you have, and then be able to do, your own studying based on that. So I can tell you as of right now, again, we still have 3 months, but as I was going through mine, I came up with my initial list of my 3 keepers really quickly and pretty easy based on draft projection order as of right now. But the more I started thinking about it today, I'm like, it's that first round pick. I don't know if I want to keep him. Is he, what is his worth going to be here in about 3 months? The good news is I've got plenty of time to decide that and watch it. But it's little things that you can kind of keep an eye on. So it's maybe, I don't know, we'll just throw out some generic stuff on there. It's, the 3rd wide receiver for the Jaguars. That you're thinking about keeping in the 15th round, because right now, he's projected to go earlier, then you can keep an eye on him. Watch training camp. You can watch preseason games and so on and go, wow, actually, he may end up being, the wide receiver number 2 by the end of the year, or maybe he could be traded to another team. A lot of things that you can think about and potentially watch before you actually have to set your keepers. So cool. A couple of other things then that we're going through. We said, there's still probably a few updates that we will be looking at for this league. I just pulled up the Messenger page for the first time in a little while and realized that some of the polls that we had posted for last, 3 months ago, or the end of the season, are gone. And there was a few things I think that were still up in the air that we're working through. So I haven't forgot about those. I'm still watching that. I think moving waivers to Thursday from Wednesday was one of them. Weekly payouts was still something that we were looking at. So I'll continue to look through that, post some more, maybe polls if we need to finalize some of that. But for the most part, like all the keeper league rules, those are set. The payouts are the same. Draft day is still the same. It's still the 24th. That Saturday at 7 o'clock, as what we've, pretty much that same Saturday every year that we follow. And so on. And then, of course, I am also in the midst of confirming everybody to be in the league for next year. So I think I've got about half of everybody so far that has said they're in. I anticipate everybody being back, but I don't know that for sure. So if I don't get their response on that poll, I will reach out to them directly. And then as soon as I know that we are set and have all 12 teams back, I will let you know. If something changes and we ended up having an opening, we'll do exactly what we did last year. We'll post how many openings we have. We will take, some names of anybody who may be interested, and then kind of decide on there, who we need in the league and, how many we can bring in and what route we go to have a full leagues. Because, of course, we want to make sure, especially with a keeper, that we have 12 teams, but ideally the same 12 teams, just so it keeps kind of all the keeper league integrity that we have intact based on drafting last year and things like that. So cool. That's all I've got for today. Hopefully that helps. Again, without giving away too much insight, you can kind of make your own predictions, do your own homework on who you think keepers are going to be. But we've got a lot of time for teams to, have those set and make that determination. So, all right, guys, enjoy your holiday weekend, and we will talk again soon.